What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, ladies? Welcome back to the Tatum Show. Hey, I want to do a Q&A regarding Charlie Kirk's trial. I've been at the trial every day that has been going on, and I know you guys have a lot of questions. There's a lot of conspiracies out there, and I want to take the time to answer all of your questions, whether you agree with me or not, whether you like the way the Charlie Kirk trial is going or not, whether you believe conspiracies or not. Ask me any question. I'm going to take the next 30 minutes of this show to answer all of your questions. And make sure, if you want the questions asked first, and make sure I don't miss it, just super chat the question and we'll get to it sooner than later. All right? Welcome to the Tatum Show.
I want everybody in this room to have that same spirit, that same identity carried in your life.
Make sure that you go through life and find your purpose.
And we don't do this just to get a pat on the back. We do it because we came here to win.
And it starts with you understanding that God has a purpose for you.
This is the time to be more bold than ever before.
We're all Americans at the end of the day, and we should love one another. We should be focused on what's right for our country. All right, y'all, welcome back. So I want to answer a couple questions. As the questions begin to filter in, I want to just give a quick update about the trial. There's a lot of things on day 2 that have happened that have been incredibly interesting and I think damning to the defense. But we still have a long way to go. There's still several days left. There's more evidence. The defense is going to bring witnesses, and they're going to have an opportunity to challenge the probable cause statement from the state. Right now, I believe the state is meeting their burden of proof on multiple levels, but obviously I'm not the judge and I'm not making that determination. But some of the things that happened today, as a quick update, is that they were able to enter the video into evidence in this case where Tyler Robinson was on campus 4 times, 2 in the morning, 1 during the shooting, where they observed him actually take the shot and run and jump off the building. And another one was at 12:30 a.m. on the 11th, which is the next day, early morning, where he was pulled over on a traffic stop. And they also had, he made contact with law enforcement. They also had ring cam footage of him there. So that, to me, or to anybody with common sense, debunks the idea that Tyler Robinson wasn't even on campus. Another thing that I think that was solidified was some of the evidence that was presented. But we'll get to some of this other stuff here soon. But I got my first question that we have that people have been asking, and I'm here to answer as many questions as I can within 30 minutes. Ask me whatever you want. I don't care how silly you think it is. I don't care how combative it may be. I'm going to do my best to answer it to the best of my ability, truthfully. All right. Is Lance Twiggs a federal asset who helped set up Tyler Robinson? There is no reason to believe that as a fact pattern. Could it be possible? Yes, it's possible. But there is no evidence to suggest that Lance Twiggs set up Tyler Robinson. There's no evidence of that. There's no suggestion of that. The defense isn't even promoting that. So for someone to say that, I think it's disingenuous and I think it's conspiratorial without necessarily being that case. I think that it's very clear that Tyler Robinson, in my opinion thus far, based on all the evidence that we've seen, that Tyler Robinson was the one that took the shot, and Lance Twiggs, being his boyfriend and roommate, had knowledge of what happened, which is why Lance Twiggs got partial immunity, and his testimony is going to be used against Tyler Robinson in the very court hearing that we're here for today and the rest of this week. The next question, do you think that there were multiple decoys wearing maroon shirts on campus to misdirect shooting suspect? I'm not sure. At this point, the evidence has not been presented that way. The defense has an opportunity to bring witnesses. They may bring this up, and if they do, we'll talk about it. But at this point, there is no indication that there was some intentionality in multiple people wearing maroon shirts to throw off the shooter. There's no evidence that there was multiple shooters. Those things have not been brought up in court. They've not been challenged by the defense. They've not been brought up by the defense, and you name it. So I don't have a reason to believe that there were other decoys that could have been staged in order to divert them from the shooter. And let me just give you this as an example. The thing that dispels all of that is the fact that Tyler Robinson turned himself in. If you are going to use distractions, meaning that other people are coordinating the effort so the shooter can get away, the shooter don't then turn himself in without the police even knowing who he is. So I think that kind of dispels that idea that there was some coordinated effort. All right, Brooke, thank you so much for the super chat. Do you think that he will make a plea before Twiggs' video is shown or before the week is over? Isn't defense basically just trying to keep him from getting the death penalty? Well, I don't really know exactly what the defense is doing. I would argue, if I had to guess, I think the defense is trying to fight for him not to get the death penalty, because I do not believe the evidence is going in their favor whatsoever so far, and even in the future, because they still are going to have to show that his parents identified him and assisted in turning him in. Then they have Lance Twiggs' testimony, which whatever that is going to be insane, because he took partial immunity. You don't get partial immunity unless the things that you say could put you in jail. So if the things that Lance Twiggs could say could be incriminating to him and could potentially place him in jail, the stuff he's saying about Tyler Robinson is probably going to be outrageous. But when it goes to the plea, I don't think, and I would not recommend them making any plea deal until the probable cause has been established, because, you wouldn't necessarily plead to something that hasn't been proven. And right now they haven't, the judge has not given the deliberation of whether or not probable cause standard has been met in this case. Now, we can clearly see that it's heading in that direction, but until the judge says that there is sufficient probable cause to believe that Tyler Robinson did this crime, the defense is not going to make any action unless they're completely belligerent. And I think that after the probable cause has been established, I think there could be a chance that they plead guilty, because going through this trial is going to take a long time. I think it's probably going to be a year before they see the trial, and the trial is going to be multiple weeks. With all of the forensic evidence, with all of the DNA evidence, the cell phone, electronic records, all the stuff that they're bringing up in probable cause, they're going to have to ask 20, 30 witnesses. And that's going to take months. And when it's on your dime and the state isn't paying for your defense, you're talking millions of dollars in defense funding. So I think that probably could be a contributing factor. Another super chat from Julie. Thank you so much for the super chat. Where do you think the defense is going with the DNA evidence? Thanks for doing this. You're awesome. I appreciate that. I was in the trial, man. I was kind of confused where they were going. I think what they want to do is to question the sufficiency of the DNA evidence overall, which then makes me think they may try to introduce the idea that the DNA from the staircase is inconclusive, which means that it could be somebody else that was in the stairwell that could have gone onto the roof that is not, in fact, Tyler Robinson. And they want to question the DNA, because you got to think the defense knows all the evidence that the prosecution has. So they're preemptively trying to discredit the prosecution, because the prosecution is going to go in a certain direction. So I think they're also trying to discredit the evidence to suggest that the evidence could have been planted by somebody else other than Tyler Robinson. And I think the prosecution is trying to show, and it's just my theory, the prosecution is trying to show that these items of evidence not only has Tyler Robinson's DNA, but it also has Lance Twiggs' DNA, which means that the items could have originated from his house, and it couldn't have been externally planted by somebody else that just so happened to have Tyler Robinson's DNA. So I think they're trying to draw all these things together, because Lance Twiggs might actually testify that the towel came from the house and that the screwdriver came from the house. And also, Lance Twiggs could have been inadvertently prepared some of these items for Tyler Robinson, and that could have, cause for an issue. And that's why I think they were trying to debunk the DNA evidence. Do I think that they're doing a sufficient job of doing that? No, I do not, because this is still a probable cause hearing. And so as long as the evidence is reasonably admissible, then the judge will see the evidence and it won't detract from a probable cause statement. All right, super chat from Raz. Thank you so much for super chat. What do you think the defense will be considering? He confessed. Okay, it moved. Can we move it up a little bit? I think when you write something in the chat, it moves. He deleted it. Can you put that super chat back up there? I didn't get to it yet. All right, we're gonna get you a question. Sorry for the. Okay, we'll go to the next one for now. Okay, next super chat. OOOF. I don't know why. Y'all got to stop these crazy names, man. Just put a regular name on there. Oof, I guess. Let's see. I do my best defending you on social media. As you said, you condemned what she said. What do you think CO motives are? I know you veer away from vilifying her as she was yours and Charlie's friend. I don't know what Candace's motives are. I cannot speak to Candace's motives. When I talk to Candace about the scenario, she comes across as believing what she is saying. I think that it would be conducive if Candace Owens and I got on a live together or did a show together and we had a cordial conversation about all the things that we both disagree with each other on. I think that'll be sufficient to do so people quit asking both of us the question of, what do we think about this? I disagree with the depiction of Erica Kirk. I disagree with the depiction of this trial. Based on my training and experience and my exposure to evidence, I do not see there being any factual basis to believe that somebody else other than Tyler Robinson did this and that he wasn't on campus, or that Israelis did it, or Erica did it. Or I don't find any factual basis. So I disagree with her on that. But I do think that one day her and I should sit down and have a conversation, maybe as a guest on her show, or she come on my show, to kind of talk about these things, because I think this is going to keep coming up. But thank you for the question. I really appreciate it. A super chat from Laker fan. Sorry to hear that. No, I'm just playing. How come Carmelo Anthony was sentenced so quickly, but this case is taking so long? Well, here's the difference between the Carmelo Anthony case, which was a trial, and this is a preliminary. It's a preliminary trial, or what they call pre-trial, probable cause trial. They are going to have to establish probable cause. Well, one is because this is in Utah and that one's in Texas, and they're not playing around in Texas. I believe that the judge is trying to be incredibly sensitive to making sure his I's are dotted and his T's are crossed, because this is probably the most high-profile case that he will ever do, and it is one of the most consequential cases that he will ever be involved in. So I think that he's allowing testimony, objections, cross-examinations to be prolonged so he can make sure that there is no question as to his fairness in this trial. And that's why I think it's going on so long. And let me explain this too. You guys got to understand the level of evidence and details that are involved in the Charlie Kirk's assassination versus Carmelo Anthony. The Carmelo Anthony situation was a spontaneous act of violence that occurred at a track meet between two people that were both known at the time of the conflict. And there were eyewitnesses. They had the kid in custody immediately after the incident happened. There is not as much evidence. In the Charlie Kirk trial, you have a person who fled the scene, who left evidence behind. There was an assassination. There was other motives involved, political motives. You had handwritten notes. You had confessions. You had parents involved in turning him in. He admitted to, well, he didn't admit to doing the crime, but he took responsibility for doing the crime by turning himself in. I mean, you have 3,000 people who are potential witnesses on this case. You have video evidence from Charlie Kirk's contracted team. You have so many things going on. You had the potential for them to have to expedite DNA, so that the federal government is involved, the state is involved, the county is involved, you have the university is involved. University has camera footage. So you have so much more stuff going on in the Charlie Kirk case than you do in a simple Carmelo Anthony case. All right. Super chat from Raz. Thank you so much. This is the one that we ended up skipping on accident. What do you think the defense will be considering? He confessed to multiple people and turned himself in. I personally think that the defense is only trying to get him off of the death penalty. His defense team is being funded by the state. And so he does not have to foot the bill. So they have a specific budget. that has been allotted to him to hire his own defense, and that's what they're doing. And I believe that they're going to exhaust all the money that's presented to them in order to defend him as much as they can in this probable cause hearing. This is the most consequential part of the trial at this point, is probable cause. Because if the state cannot prove or demonstrate that there's sufficient probable cause to even take this to trial, there is no case. Tyler Robinson walks home and be with his boyfriend again. That's what's going to happen if there's no determination of probable cause to proceed to trial. And so that's why this is consequential. And I think they're going to pull out every stop that they can to avoid the judge determining probable cause. Because once they do that, with the amount of evidence that's being out there and presented, I think he has no chance at trial. And that's just my opinion. Okay, let's go to the next. What does DNA evidence on a towel and screwdriver matter? Could that be planted? I think that's why it matters, is that the DNA evidence on these items will determine if they were planted or not. And the multitude of different DNA on these items could determine if somebody else was involved in this case, not only Tyler Robinson. At this point, the only evidence that they have is Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs. So that would eliminate a third party or somebody not already being investigated as a part of planting evidence or contaminating any of this evidence. So I think that's why the DNA is incredibly important, not only to prove that Tyler Robinson was the one that touched the towel, which is seen on the person running from the roof, but not only that, the screwdriver, which will put Tyler Robinson on the roof, if his DNA is on a screwdriver on the roof as the primary DNA source. And then it also, the gun and all the other things, when you put the whole case together, having his DNA on all of the multitude of things will point in a direction beyond a reasonable doubt that he was the suspect. So that's why it's important. If they do not have DNA, sufficient DNA, then it is open to reasonable doubt that Tyler Robinson was in fact the person who did it, because there could be somebody else. But that's why the DNA is very important. Let's see. How do I talk to my kids about Charlie Kirk's trial? Well, it depends on how old your kids are. You say kids, your kid could be 20 years old. I'm not sure. You got to give me more information. Whoever's asking that question, you got to give me information on how old your kids are. If your kids are young, I mean like 7 and 8, little kids, well, it depends on what you want them to be exposed to. If your kids, or you are okay with your kids being exposed to the fact that Charlie Kirk was assassinated and murdered in cold blood, then I would say you need to allow them or walk them through the process of what happened to Charlie. You don't have to get into too many gross details, but just the fact that he was killed, and then what the process is when it comes to holding people accountable that do those things to other people. If your kids are older, I would encourage you to encourage them to watch the evidence being presented and absorb it for themselves, and not necessarily try to listen to everybody about what's being presented. But hear commentary, but also verify on your own because it's public. Let's see. Twins 24, thanks so much for the super chat. Way to show up when it really matters the most. I was very happy to see you there. Love your content. P.S. Candace Owens is demonic. That's so funny. Somebody leave that super chat. Man, I'm gonna leave that alone. Y'all, you can make your own determination as to what you think about Candace Owens. Like I always present when I say this, I've known Candace Owens from the time I left the police department to today. I will always have love for Candace Owens. She'll always be my sister. I disagree with the things that she say, and hopefully one day her and I can have a discussion and talk these things through. Because I do think the things that she say could have a negative effect unintentionally if that's not her intent. Will the preliminary trial actually affect the jury pool? It can the preliminary trial can have an effect on the jury pool. And this is why you see the defense objecting to a lot of the evidence that's obviously being put into place, is because they don't want this evidence to get out there before they select the jurors. Now, they have a process, because think about this. There is no way, what is his name that killed George Floyd? What is his name? I forget his name now. Derek Chauvin. There's no way in the world that Derek Chauvin will have a fair trial, right? There's no way you could try Derek Chauvin. Everybody in the world, the president weighed in, everybody in Congress, every commentator, every news outlet weighed in. So nobody in the world didn't know what happened to Derek Chauvin. Happened in the Derek Chauvin case. They were showing George Floyd. They were celebrating George Floyd all over the world. And so, therefore, within reason, you have to try to preserve the potential jurors, but they have processes that can give you a fair trial to the best of their ability, if that makes sense. Change of venue. They also get a chance to strike jurors that they believe are biased. And then they ask jurors questions. And there, believe it or not, there's a segment of population that have their head under a rock, and they care more about other things than Charlie Kirk. And if they can get those type of jurors in place, then that's kind of what they want to do for the prosecution and the defense. Should Sean Ryan correct the record after Candace Owens was on his show and said Tyler wasn't on campus? I don't necessarily think that Sean Ryan himself has to correct the record. I think that it would be in his best interest to either do a follow-up interview with Candace Owens and ask her about this. Therefore, on record, on his show, there could be some type of reflection of an attempt to correct it, but it's not his words, it was her words. Now, I'll add this. I also think that Sean Ryan should interview somebody that's on the opposite side of what Candace Owens said. Therefore, he can have a balanced perspective on his show. And I am disappointed in some things that Sean Ryan did on that show, because I felt like when Candace said people shouldn't join the military, as a person who served, I would have liked for him to ask her to explain and go deeper into that conversation. When Candace said a few things about Tyler Robinson, even saying that he was never on campus, I would have liked to see Sean Ryan say, can you go deeper into this and explain what make you believe he wasn't there at all with this evidence being presented? Because if I interview somebody, I can't just let you just say whatever you want to say on my show. If I'm going to ask you the question, well, I can, but I can't just leave it there. If I'm going to ask you a question, I need to have a viable perspective as to what I'm asking you. I can't just ask you, hey, man, who is Tyler Robinson? And then you go off and say Tyler Robinson was a three-headed monster. And I go, okay, I get it. No, if I'm going to ask you who Tyler Robinson is, I need to have a baseline as to the totality of who Tyler Robinson is presented to be. So then I can follow up if you say something that's just completely outlandish. Because I think it hurts the credibility of somebody's show if you got people consistently going on your show and saying things that may not be true. And there's no evidence of you pushing back on it. That's how Tucker Carlson got in trouble, because he let McDumdum get on there and say Hitler was he said Joseph Stalin I forget what he said. I think he said something to the effect of like he admired Joseph Stalin or something like that. And it's like, yeah, you could say that, but a reasonable journalist or person who have any integrity would say, Joseph Stalin, who killed more Jews than Hitler, can you explain more about what do you mean by that? You know, this is what, like, if I was interviewing Candace or anybody of that nature, I would let them talk, but I would ask them follow-up questions to get to the bottom of it. So if Candace was on my show, like she was on Sean Ryan's show, and she go, I don't think Tyler Robinson's on campus whatsoever. And I would say, okay, can you explain that? Like, where are you getting that from? If Candace was on my show and she said Erica Kirk was a certified psychopath, I would ask her, okay, I hear what you're saying. Where are you getting this information from? Like, give me some solid, concrete perspective. And whether I agree with you or not is irrelevant. But I need you to explain it, because my audience need to hear some verifiable facts that lead you to say this. and you're not just saying it to be superfluous or whatever the case may be. And that goes for anybody that come on your show. And then let me say this, because I think it's important. It's not easy to do that when you bring guests on your show. It's not. You know, like when when I interviewed Bibi Netanyahu, I did ask him all the questions that y'all wanted me to ask him. I asked him about him potentially going to prison. I asked him about him giving a stand-down order, which is something Charlie Kirk had mentioned. I asked him about the Christian church that was bombed, or now we know that it was kind of shrapnel that hit the church. I asked him about those things. But one thing that I wasn't going to do is I wasn't going to necessarily challenge him to a certain degree on certain things that I wasn't privy to. Like, for instance, when I asked him about him going to prison, I said, look, people are saying that you are prolonging this war because when the war is over, you're going to go to prison. He gave an explanation. I didn't just let him talk and not have him say anything about the things that people were questioning him about. But there were some things. Like, for instance, if Donald Trump came on my show, there's a level of decorum and respect that I show Donald Trump that I'm not going to go in there and bash him on my show over things that he say. I will have him give follow-up questions and let him, embarrass or justify the things he believes. And I'll ask him follow-up questions to do that. But I'm not going to be contentious with Donald Trump, a world leader. I'm not going to be contentious unless it's absolutely necessary to be contentious. Like if Benjamin Netanyahu said America is not the greatest country on planet Earth, then I would have to check him on that. But some of the other things that he said that was reasonably explained that I could not combat, then I wasn't going to keep pressing, and I didn't have any real reason to press. It's the same thing that the mainstream media does with Trump. They just ask him stupid questions and nonsensical things, and they just make up stuff to ask him that's not relevant or true, just for the sake of being combative. And I don't think that's reasonable. Like I think if Candace Owens came on my show and we had a conversation, I don't have the intent to be combative. I have the intent to have her explain thoroughly the reasons she came to some of these conclusions that I cannot understand. Some people are allotted that privilege with me. Some people are not. If Tucker Carlson came on my show, he would come on my show for there to be combat, you know what I'm saying, on some of the stuff that he said. However, if I was on his show, I'm not going to be openly combative with him on his own show unless he stimulate the argument. I think that's it. Is that all the questions? Oh, I have dinner reservations, and I can't let the wifey down. But I love you guys. I appreciate it. All you guys watching. Stay tuned. The trial is 3 more days. I think 3 more days. Unless they finish early. I am sitting through every second of that trial for you. And I'm telling you, it's not easy. What makes it easy, because I have a purpose to be there. And it's not to go live. It's not to do none of that. It's to support my friend and support Erica Kirk and Charlie Kirk's family. His mom and daddy is there. It's the reason I can stand strong and sit through that, them objecting to everything and make you want to pull your eyeballs out, is because I do want to honor my friend. And I'll finish with this. I want every single person on here to pray for Erica Kirk and the Kirk family. Please pray for her children. Pray for Erica Kirk's mind. Pray for Charlie's mom and dad, who has to suffer through this. They had nothing. They did not deserve their son to be murdered in this way, and they do not deserve to have to sit through a trial with the person who potentially killed their son that's be sitting right there to have to endure this. I want you guys to pray for them, okay? I would do a prayer right now, but I think it'll be more fruitful if y'all will all separately pray on your own and pray for his family. As a matter of fact, I'll just do it right now, all right? I'm going to say a quick prayer for the things that I think need to be prayed for, okay? And I want you guys to pray with me. I don't know how many people we have on, whatever. Okay, so let's pray for the Kirk family in this trial, okay? Because we want justice to be served. And that's however justice lands, okay? So if y'all want to pray for me, Lord, thank you so much for waking us up this morning, giving us a new opportunity to serve you. God, we know that you're sovereign over all things, and we look to you whenever we have trouble, good times and bad times. But in this specific moment, We want to pray for Erica Kirk. We want to pray for her children. We want to pray for the people who protect her. We want to pray for Charlie Kirk's mom and dad. We pray that you give them a sound mind, give them peace in the middle of this terrible situation. Give them the peace in knowing that Charlie Kirk is with you and that Charlie Kirk was a good man and he did your work while he was here and that his legacy would never die. And I pray for everybody that's affected by this trial. I even pray for Tyler Robinson and his family. I pray, Lord, that you give them wisdom, give them peace. And we know that you're sovereign over all these things and that justice will be served. And I pray that you give a sound mind to the defense and the prosecution that they may be fruitful in doing what's right. And God, we thank you for the many blessings that you've given us. We thank you for all the things that you've done for us. We owe it all to you. And we believe in these things because you're capable of doing all things. And we pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see y'all tomorrow, bright and early. I'm out.